Okay, the topic of this video is not really random. To some people it might be, kind of depends on where you've lived and when you lived there. So I live in Washington State in suburbia of Seattle, and one thing it was huge, this is a tough topic in terms of like childhood. I grew up when the Green River Killer, who's a serial killer who targeted young women in Washington State, was on the loose in Washington State, and so I grew up in very much, it wasn't a culture of fear, but it was a culture of fear. My mom went to the University of Washington, which is a place where Ted Bundy, so he was killing when my mom was alive, and one of the places he targeted women was the University of Washington. My mom attended the University of Washington, so there's kind of like a generational, I have so much respect for my mom in making it through and like dealing with the being in the approximate age range. I was young for the Green River Killer's age range, so there was more of, when I was raised, we have tall trees on our street and stuff like that, so if we're walking to a bus stop or something like that, my mom would always want us to be walking with someone else. Like if there were people on our street who got off at the same bus stop, she always wanted us walking with someone else. She did not want us to be alone. She gave us, there's self-defense you can get in a class, and then there's self-defense you can get from your parents, like I got from my mom if they've been through kind of a tough time. And so she was alive and survived the Ted Bundy times in Washington State. And then the Green River Killer, I think he started killing before I was Gary Ridgway even born, if I'm remembering correctly, and he was caught in about 2001, and I think I was about 9 years old at that time. I was born in 1992, and I think it was later, 2001. 2001 was a big year here in Washington State. There was like 9/11 elsewhere, but that affected national security. I think we had the Nisqually earthquake, if I'm remembering correctly, and the Green River Killer got caught. And so there was just like poof, a bunch of things. Like the earthquake was more of impact to my life actually directly than the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center. And the Green River Killer was like above either of those, the terrorist attack or the Nisqually earthquake. In terms of just like social impact, that one was huge. Him being caught and apprehended and stuff like that. And so one of the things my mom taught me was like, if someone gets you, don't be afraid. And I'm going to share this one because it came back around, and so this is where it's not so much of a random topic, is some of those things that I have learned earlier in life I've integrated into my life and I've actually had to use. And so the one I'm going to bring up is when I was in Africa, I was at a club and someone tried to abduct me. And so I actually used what my mom told me to do to fight off a serial killer when I was younger, and that was to press on the person's eyeballs. Like, it's okay if they, like, don't be afraid to jam a pencil into their eyeball. Don't be afraid to push out their eyes, that kind of thing. Like, if it's a serial killer and they're trying to take you, it's your life. You're fighting for your life. Don't be afraid to do those things. So in Africa, that's what I did, is I pressed on the person's eyeballs with my thumbs, and they let me go. And so I'm still here. I didn't get abducted. And so that's a success story. And yeah, so that's the one that I would share, is don't be afraid, like, to go for the eyeballs. And that was a big success story in that they let me go. So in that kind of sense too, because there is they want to go so far as and that's not necessarily this serial killer situation, but they're not looking for themselves to get severely injured and have their entire lifestyle changed, which not being able to see would severely affect their lifestyle. So just like little things like that as self-defense mechanisms. I would say this fear was very extreme when I was little, and then Gary Ridgway got caught and got sentenced and that kind of thing. And since then, I've kind of not grown out of it, but I think there's a bit of surviving those times, even if you're not the person that's targeted, if you're in the area that they a serial killer chooses victims from when they are active, it's a very different experience than like moving into a place where serial killers used to kill. Like if there's a serial killer in the San Francisco Bay Area and I move into the San Francisco Bay Area, it's like, okay, that doesn't really affect me because they already caught that person. So that kind of thing. That's my experience with it. I have so much respect for the people who, like my mom, were in the age range or just outside the age range of the women that were targeted by these serial killers. That took severe grit and some serious heart to get through those times. So props to you ladies.